A percent can always be used to compare a part to a whole. In a percent, the whole number is always 100, which we learned last week. So bear with me while I explain this. Finding a part, you need to know that if a question were to ask you, what is 85% of 20, we're going to set it up like this. Now, before you look at this graph, don't get freaked out. What I want for you to do is write a little note in your notes, and I want it to say is over of, and it'll make sense here why in a minute, is equal to your percent over 100. Now, don't freak out looking at this, but if you use your keywords, guys, you can figure out what you need. So they're saying what is, so if I don't know what is, I know I'm going to have to put a question mark over. It says what is 85%? Well, 85% has the percent sign, so that's going to go on top up here. So I'm just going to put an equal sign. My 85, because it has 85%. Percents are always written over 100. And then it says what is 85% of 20? So that means my of is going to be 20. So now I need to ask myself, well, how do I get from 20 to 100? And I know 20 times 4 is 80, so 20 times 5 must be 100. If I multiply by 5 here, I know I'm going to have to multiply this question mark by 5 to get 85. So I need to figure out, well, what is 85 divided by 5? So go ahead and solve this with me. 5 will go into 8 once. Minus 5 is equal to 3. Bring down my 5. How many times does 5 go into 35? Well, 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 7 is going to give me 35. So that means that my question mark is equal to 17. Now you might be saying, well, Miss S, what is all this graph and stuff for? What you need to see is that the blue part is your percent. So we've talked about how percents are always out of 100. Okay, so they're saying along this percent sign somewhere, we need to figure out what 85% is. So they drew this line here to show 85%. Our whole number is going to be 20. So they want to figure out, well, what is 85% of 20? When you set it up, just like they did, 85 over 100 is equal to my part over my whole. Well, my whole is going to be 20. Okay, 100 divided by 5 is 20. So 85 divided by 5 gives me 17. Let's go ahead and look at this next part, that is finding the whole.
17 is 85% of what number?
So looking at this, it's a little different. Remember, if I have my is over my of is equal to my percent over 100. That's a bad percent sign. I'm so sorry. It looks like a tadpole. Okay, I need to figure out what I know. Well, I know 85%, so my 85 will go over my 100 because every percent is compared to 100. Okay, and then I have an equal sign. Now I need to see, do I know my is or my of? 17 is, so that must mean I know my 17. 17 is 85% of what number? Well, I don't know my of. So I'm going to put an X here, or you can put a question mark. So I need to figure out, well, how do I get from 85 to 17? Or 17 to 85? I know 17 times 5 is 85. Or 85 divided by 5 is 17. If I divide by 5 up here, I need to divide by 5 down here. And 100 divided by 5 is 20. So if you remember, the main things for this is going to be is over of is equal to your percent over 100. Now, Miss S, when am I going to use this? You're going to use it when you're shopping, which all of you do that, whether it's buying your Jordans, your joggers, a new iPhone, or if you're at the grocery store trying to figure out what's the best deal. So you always are going to use percents. You need to know percents even if you eat food. What percent of the pizza are you going to get versus what percent of the pizza is your brother going to get? You will use this all the time. So let's go ahead on to the next slide, and we're moving on to part 1. Don't mind the birds chirping in the background. It's nice outside.
Complete each statement with the value that makes each statement true.
So again, let's use our little key up here. So if I have is, I'm going to put an I over O for of is equal to my percent over 100. That'll help me out to remember what I need to do. So blank is, so I don't know my is for this one, so I'll put an X, is 30%. So where would we put that? Well, we put that over the 100 always because percents are written over 100 of 50. Well, now I need to figure out what goes here. It's 50 because it says of 50. Okay, how do I get from 50 to 100? Well, 50 times 2 is 100, or going the opposite way, 100 divided by 2 is 50. So 30 divided by 2 will give me my 15. So go ahead and put that in your notes. And guys, I don't want to see just 15 in your notes. I need to see all of this work. Because on your test, if you just give me an answer, I know you've probably typed it into the calculator. I need to see your work to go along with it. Okay, let's try this next one. Blank is, well, that means I'm solving for my is again. 80%, well, 80 goes on top, 100's on bottom. Of is 25. Let's go ahead and set that up. I'll give you a couple seconds. Now, how would I get from 25 to 100? Well, I think about my quarters. 1 quarter is 25 cents, 2 quarters is 50 cents, 3 quarters is 75 cents, 4 quarters is $1. So 25 times 4, or 100 divided by 4 will give me 25. So what's 80 divided by 4? Well, 4 goes into 8 twice, no remainders. Bring down my 0. So I know that 20 is 80% of 25. Let's go ahead on to the next one. Blank is 15%, so let's put 15 over 100 of 200. So if my of is 200, I need to solve for my is. So how would I get from 100 to 200? I would times by 2. So what is 15 times 2? Well, 15 times 2 is 30. Let's look for this next one. We have blank is 200%. Miss S, can I do that? Yeah, you can. Think about batting average. You can score 200% of what you scored last time, meaning double. Okay, 200% of 20. So, what do I know? My of is 20. I know my percent. Okay, so my percent is always compared to 100. So that must mean that 200 is on top. So I have 200 over 100, okay, and blank is, so my is I don't know, but my of is 20. So let's look at my patterns here. How do I get from 100 to 20? Well, 20 times 5 is 100, so 100 divided by 5 gives me 20. So now what I want for you to do is solve. What's 200 divided by 5? And I want you to put that number over here in that box. Go and freeze your screen, and I am going to move on. I need to see the answer for that in your notes.
One way you can display the results of a survey is in a circle graph. A circle graph is a graph that represents a total divided into parts. Each slice of the circle represents part of the whole. In a circle graph, the percents will sum to 100%.
So looking at this, they're saying that 100%, or this whole circle, can give us our whole.
We have a cat. We've always had cats. We are a cat family. Crazy cat?
Customers in a pet store were asked what type of pet they own. If we had this, obviously we'd have chinchillas and bunnies here. Okay, but customers want to know what type of pet they own. The circle graph shows the results of the survey. If 8 customers own cats, how many customers were surveyed? Well, I know I'm going to go in and circle my cats, because obviously that's important. Well, let's figure out what I know. Okay, I know that all percents are compared to 100, and oh my gosh, 40% were cats, so I must have to put my 40 on top. Sorry about that scribble, my bad. Okay, so 40%, just pretend that's a percent sign. 40 over 100, great. Okay, if 8 customers own cats, well, since this is 8, is this going to be my part or my whole? Well, it's only my part, because I have a whole circle here. There are some people, like this whole, who have dogs. There are some people that have reptiles, and I am not one of them. But that still isn't a whole. My 8 is not my whole. It's going to have to be my part, or my is. So I know that there's still a whole here somewhere, and I need to solve for that. So how would I get from 40 to 8, boys and girls? Well, I know 8 times some number has to be 40. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times 7 still seems too big. 8 times 6 is 48. So 8 times 5 is going to give me 40. So that means 40 divided by 5 is 8. Well, what is 100 divided by 5? 100 divided by 5 will give me my answer. So 100 divided by 5 means my x will be equal to 100 divided by 5, which is 20. What does that mean, Miss S? That means a total of 20 people were surveyed here for this result. Let's go ahead on to the next screen.
In one community, 84% of the animal shelters microchip cats and dogs before adoption. If 21 shelters in the community microchip cats and dogs, how many animal shelters are in that community?
So what do we know? Well, we know that 84%, and 84 is always written over what number? 84 is always over 100. Okay? 84% of the animal shelters microchip cats and dogs before adoption. If 21 shelters in the community microchip cats and dogs, how many are in the community? Well, I know that there's still more shelters out there that probably don't microchip dogs and cats. So 21 must be my part, or must be my part. So I need to figure out what my whole is. So I need to see, well, 84 divided by what number is 21? And once I figure that out, 100 divided by what number that was up here will give me x. So I'm going to go ahead and freeze the screen. I would like you to do the same. And I want you to try solving this problem. Here are your potential answer choices. So go ahead and freeze your screen. And then we can go ahead and move on.